Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Shannon Lee Simmons, best-selling author, financial planner, and founder of the New School of Finance. Shannon is on a mission to make money feel more human. Shannon, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story, and how did it lead to your mission of making money awesome?
Yeah, I've always been interested in finance without actually even knowing it. So I was the kid that was trying to scale my lemonade stand and all that. And I grew up in a family business where money was talked about very casually, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I didn't realize that was rare until, I offended my first friend by asking them blunt questions about their finances. So I've always had this, sort of exposure to and relationship to it. And I thought that originally I started on Bay Street. I was working in high net worth investment management. It was a lovely job. Everyone wants me to hate it. I did not. But what was frustrating for me about it is that in that world, you often tend to the analyst and the stock picking, the money management, the investment management is the big shiny thing. And then the financial planning was this sort of like value add. And I always found the value add to be the most fascinating part because I'm not just defending a position in a mutual fund. I'm literally planning someone's life. And that to me was when the light bulb went on and I was like, oh my goodness. And especially during the 2008, 2009 crash, these people had millions of dollars and they were still freaking out. And then I was still able to provide, you're providing value through the personal finance part of it, not through the analyst part of it. So I quit and started my own thing in 2010 and never looked back. So we're 15 years in of doing fee-only financial planning, which I find wild. But I think that 2008, 2009 crash was a big turning point for me when you say like your mission to make money like more accessible, more fun, all that. During the crash, when I was working with super high net worth clients, they were really worried. And I remember being like, of course you are. This is terrifying. Where are normal people going? Oh, and I looked around the Canadian landscape and not a lot of choice. So I was young and I didn't have a mortgage or kids at the time. And I had this sort of passion, like I'm going to do something about that. I want to be the person that I can't find right now. Like that's what I want to do. And so that was sort of like the turning point where when I quit, I wanted to make it more accessible financially and also in how we talk about it. Because I realized too, it doesn't need to be that complicated. It really doesn't.
Well, I think you hit on something there is it doesn't have to be complicated, but it's really, about what you say is with the communication. And I think that's something that is so overlooked because, I've worked with clients at all different ranges. I consult predominantly with financial planners. And it's the same thing, as you said, if somebody's ultra high net worth or, they're just getting by, and actually a lot of ultra high net worth people are just getting by sometimes, surprisingly, with crazy salaries. So the conversations are the same. So, as you talk about it, one of the things you talk about is that our financial lives are a road trip. Why should we think of it as a road trip rather than as a destination?
So I put this right on my website and I've been using this analogy for years. I find that the financial planning long lens piece is like a road trip from Newfoundland all the way to Victoria, right across Canada. And it's the same as like, all right, here's the planned sort of route. if we drive this many kilometers, this many days, it should take approximately this long. That's the like 40-page retirement document. Like if you do this over a certain amount of time with this rate of return, you're kind of going to get in this ballpark. But then the actual financial planning that I think matters, that didn't get a lot of love, that I think you do, that I did, like, is in the weeds. And that is like, okay, we're in PEI. The weather is this, your car is this is the gas prices. Let's get you through this province and then we'll regroup and pivot if we need to for the next province, because the nitty-gritty of how your life shifts and changes over a short period of time, how can one giant plan of stick to this many kilometers a day get you through everything that you're going to go through on your road trip? So I definitely think that the journey part is because life continues to throw things at us and we constantly need to pivot, and our finances are tied to that. And so that's why I think financial planning is fascinating, interesting, ever-changing, and you kind of need that planner, that coach, that person that's working alongside you to sort of keep you going and hit your kilometers, so to speak, even though like you might have had a flat tire.
Yeah, well, I love that. And I think we don't talk enough about the need to pivot. That was something I found as an insurance consultant. Like with insurance policies, somebody would buy an insurance policy and it's like, well, when was the last time you reviewed it? Well, I haven't really reviewed it. And I'm like, you've had it for 20 years. Wouldn't it be a good idea,
Yeah.
to review it? I mean, so, as you think about some of the clients that you've worked with, is how can we encourage people to start reviewing things instead of just considering that they're set and forget?
Yeah, I think it's actually to do with their relationship with their financial planner. So I think that for a lot of people who work with advisors or wealth management, the focus is still on what rate of return do you need, and like here's the plan, and it's a set and forget situation, and maybe you'll review the asset mix. But that's not responding to life, right? Like reviewing
Hmm.
your asset mix and your risk tolerance in a short period of time is not a pivot in a financial strategy because now you are becoming a caregiver. Do you know what I mean? Like it's totally different.
Yeah.
So I really think that, and this is a bias of mine, of course. I'm a fee-only financial planner, so I don't sell product or anything like that. And I really think that that allows for people to pivot a strategy and get the advice when they need to pivot, because you get a financial plan, you pay for it out of pocket because it's not tied to products, and then you go about your business. And when it doesn't fit anymore, you'll feel it, right? Like something's happened in your life and now you have this financial planner who's there almost like a general contractor in your life or like a GP. And like,
Hmm.
hey, these big things just happened in my life. And it's like, cool, we need to pivot, da 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 da. So I feel like that is what's happening in the greater shift of financial planning in Canada. I do think it's shifting so that it's an advice first situation that we're changing to. Was when I started in this business 20 years ago, it was definitely wealth management for like investment management first, advice and financial planning second. And I think we're starting to see the shift to that so that these pivots can be more front of mind.
Well, that's great. And that's the way I've always looked at a financial planner as somebody who should be a general contractor, but that sometimes they overlook certain areas, as a responsibility for taxes or insurance or
Yeah.
estate planning. So, how should financial planners be thinking about that? Because a lot of them are primarily investment focused. They're trained on investments.
Yeah.
How do they expand their thinking?
Yeah, I think it's more that I think that clients will demand it soon. I think, you know what I mean? Like, I think that that's becoming the norm, is that you are sort of responsible to be this holistic view of a human's life. And as we have the rise of AI and we have a lot of robo advisors, and we have a lot of places that we can now outsource the sort of asset mix part of our life and the rebalancing part of our life, then what is the value add that working with a human and an individual is actually getting me? And this, the great wealth transfer is upon us. It's happening right now. This is the trillions of
Hmm.
dollars moving from boomers to Gen X and millennials over the next, 5 to 10 years. So who controls the wealth is changing too. And I have found in my years of, being on the front line of financial planning, Gen X, especially millennial as well, are much more savvy and aware and demanding of their financial planners in the right way, in a way that makes me say, heck yeah. They're fee conscious. That doesn't mean anti-fee. It just means I want to make sure that I know what I'm paying and I want to make sure that it's worth it. So just like explain to me your value and I'm happy to pay the money. And I think too often the industry has been like, shameful about saying what a fee is, like not mine because I'm fee only, so it's right out there.
Mhm.
In the wealth management world, if it's hard to explain. What is it exactly getting you? Is it based on performance? Should it be based on performance? It's very much of a black box. And I think as we see this shift coming, it will be demanded of advisors to speak their advice value. And I do believe that working with a person who's giving advice and doing the pivoting with you over the lifetime is absolutely worth something and is absolutely worth a fee that I'm not afraid of losing out to somebody who's going to go DIY because I add a completely different value. And I think it's only those advisors who have been ignoring the financial plan, the holistic planning, the human touch, the human connection, the behavior economics piece, all of that piece that is what working with a planner actually is about. Those are the ones that are going to have to, it's no longer about this and change. But I think ultimately it's more rewarding for work for sure to actually be in the trenches with a client and help them through those moments, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think one of the things we're seeing with the wealth transfer is that women are getting control of a larger amount of
Yeah.
the wealth. And I think that is having a major impact. The studies show that the 80 to 90% of widows will leave their current financial planner. The same with divorced women. And usually, almost every time they'll go with a female financial planner. So, I think that, yeah, as you point out, is things are changing and there's different expectations.
Yeah.
So just before we talk about your book what different expectations do you see that women have in working with financial planners?
Yeah, and I see this all the time because people coming in saying like I want to, look at my portfolio, I want to leave or I don't have any relationship with this person. And I hear the kind of common anecdotal complaints over and over. And because I'm not a direct competitor,
Mhm.
people unload on me and I'm like, great, because I'm not there to win their business. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm a sounding board instead of being a person that they're interviewing. And so I've collected a lot of that sort of anecdotal evidence over the years. And I'd say the big things, and I don't think it's about, I only want to work with a female advisor, although I understand the stats are there to prove that. And I see it play out. What I ultimately think it is I want to feel like I can trust my advisor. I want to feel like I can ask stupid questions anytime that I am there. And that's because we all have stupid questions. I still have stupid questions. And I think everyone should be allowed to do that. But there's a big, I feel dumb. I don't want to feel dumb. And if your advisor is making you feel dumb, then that's the wrong person for you. And I think ultimately they want to feel understood. And that the default is I think I could get that from a female advisor because the experience to date has been with a male advisor who didn't make them feel all those things. But there's lots of females who are investing with male advisors who do feel all those things and have zero problems. So I think it's more about because making your client feel comfortable is about empathy, is about education and not patronizing like tones. And I think that happens I think historically that has happened almost by accident. I still hear lots of women say things like, and it's the same in the like home renovation world too. So, male contractor comes in, speaks directly to the man, and just is like, "Oh, hi." And even though she's the one making all the decisions, she's the one that's going to say yes or no. She's the one that's going to say, "Well, I'm signing on the dotted line." And it's just, this just missed that mark. And I think it's very similar with finances is like that. If that's been your previous experience, then of course you think I have to go with a female. But so I think there's chances for everybody as long as there's empathy and trust and education and a genuine relationship, like a bond with somebody where you feel like, oh, this person understands me.
Yeah, well, I think you hit on it. And I've interviewed, so people who've watched and listened to this podcast for a while have heard this from numerous women financial planners, financial coaches, is, don't judge, women want to be seen, as you point out, is
Yeah.
I've seen that when I was younger, is my sister would have me if she needed work done on her car, she'd have me go to the garage with her and
Yep.
deal with the mechanic
I
because
still do that.
it
I
could be the
still do.
exact same thing. And,
Yeah,
it's like, really? But unfortunately, it's a lesson we can all learn from.
totally. And it's not everybody, obviously. There are certain specific situations where that can happen. And I do think it is lessening, but the mechanic is still one that gets me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's good advice for everyone. So, let's talk a little bit about your book. What inspired you to write your latest book, Making Bank Money Skills for Real Life?
Yeah, I don't normally work with teenagers. Like my day-to-day job is financial planning for adults. But
Hmm.
I have lots of Gen X clients and who are like, in the sandwich, they're becoming caregivers, they have kids, or they're planning for retirement, or they're done their first career, they're starting a second one. There's lots of juicy stuff happening in our like late 40s and into our 50s. And I had a lot of clients who were like, my teenagers they don't understand the value of money. I'm so worried about them. Or they got their first job and they're not budgeting. Can you just sit down with them? Can you help? Can you help? So I organically had, several meetings with the teenagers of some of my clients. And then very quickly among the handful that I thought would sort of be one-off situations, realized that there is a common thread between even these just small sample size of teenagers that I found shocking and exhilarating and uh, so different than what I thought, and was like, well, I have to do something. I want to do something, and I'll tell you what that is. So the common sort of like complaint, I would say, from the parents who in that initial group had asked me to sit down with their teen, and that's a slice of pie of people who were complaining specifically. Not every parent is complaining about their teen. Um, we're so worried about them because of like the overspending and da 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 da. Well, working with these small group, I realized, they never really saw money ever. So this is the first cohort of teenager who's literally grown up with parents using tap technology. I didn't grow up with tap technology. Tap technology came much later in my life. I used to watch my dad go to the teller, get $100 out, and then give $20 to the pizza man. I saw a physical transaction happen. There's an awareness. You had this, now you have less. So you're accidentally learning budgeting. You're accidentally doing that with physical cash. And this cohort is now, 14, 15, 16. They've watched their parents tap since the day that they were born. And that's new
Hmm.
and unprecedented in our entire economy. That's unprecedented. So that's number one. I think it completely shifts the way that they identify with money, talk about money, feel about money. There's no loss aversion in the same way that you have when you physically hold something that creates a loss aversion. We don't have the same idea. And it means that money is always a cerebral sort of gamified situation, like points, instead of cash. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's weird. So
Hmm.
that really struck me. And the other thing that struck me, and this is a combination of some of the Gen Z clients that I have with like really young people that are like 18, 19, and then the teenagers as well. One of them was like 14, is like, I can't wait to day trade so I can double my money. And I'm like, you're 14. What are you talking about day trading? What? So they have like access to financial information that is coming from places that are not parents and teachers, that's for sure. With social media, where they're getting the information, they're on Reddit, they're on TikTok, they're influencers. That's also new for teenagers to be learning financial literacy from their trusted resources, not what's being put on them. That's so new and they have to navigate it. And finally, the stakes for them at 18 or the age of majority, the stakes for them at the age of majority is so much higher than we ever had. So I was handed a credit card at 18. I could have opened an investment account at 18. I even could have gambled when I reached the age of majority. But if I wanted to online sports bet, I had to go to a Proline kiosk. Okay, that's a pain.
Hmm.
If I wanted to open an investment account and buy a stock, I had to go to a physical location, probably with a parent, and do something about that. Whereas now I can literally do that from my phone while I'm watching a show. So can they. At 18, they can do that. The stakes have never been higher for real life consequences, and they have to also deal with tap technology combined with marketing through social media that is so aggressive. So like they have these stakes that are so high and so real, but we don't teach them the right like the skills before they turn 18. And it's like being handed the keys to a Ferrari with a learner's permit. Turning 18 is a wild experience now, and it's unprecedented. It's never happened before, and that's why I wanted to write Making Bank.
Well, that's awesome. And what you say completely resonates with me is, thinking about, my early money years, there was a lot of friction. If I wanted money, well, first I'd get a paycheck. I'd have to take it to the bank.
Yep.
And if I wanted money, I'd have to go to the bank, which was only, they were only open, 2 hours a day,
Yeah.
banker's hours. And I'd actually have to get money. And like you said, is you go somewhere and you would pay money, you know?
All different. There's no
So
friction. There's no friction for anything. All barriers are gone.
yeah, and that's exactly it. And I see that with my teenage son is, one, what's it, one button shopping or whatever it's called, it's like
Yep. Done.
you just tap on it and it's done. And so he doesn't, we're struggling with it is, it's like, okay, there's a connection here. You can't spend more money than you have, but it's also hard for him to feel
Conceptual,
that.
because they don't touch it. It's so stacked against them. And that's what really struck me. And I'm like, this is a wild thing that we're expecting of them. And I think we need to rethink the entire way we teach money, because we're teaching it for a for a society that has some friction, and there's no friction left. So,
Hmm.
so we need them we need them practicing in their Ferrari from like 15 on. Do you know what I mean? So like we need a Ferrari simulator for them, so they're ready when they get, so that when they get the keys, they're ready for it, because it's the old school rules are done. They don't stack up. It's not enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, just real quick, do you have any tips or thoughts for parents on how they can do this?
I mean, obviously I'm biased. I think you should buy Making Bank and read it as a family.
All right.
This has been I mean, it's a shameless plug. But one of the benefits of the book that I have had now that it's come out, and I've had lots of feedback from readers and whatnot, is that this is a book for teenagers to read because it's interesting and I made it like a story. But a side benefit that I didn't actually plan on that's happening is that the parents are reading it at the same time. So the conversation around money at home is changing. And I think that that's really important. I think that it helps parents to sort of understand where the kids are coming from in a way that maybe they didn't think about before. Like, oh, that is hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, I find tap
Hmm.
technology hard. Of course you do. You're like, you like, oh my God, like, of course. And I didn't have that, just because you want that expensive thing at Sephora or those $200 sneakers, just because I think that's ridiculous, that's really important to you. And like maybe we're setting things like, I just think that reading it as a team starts the conversation off on the right foot of like, sort of a shame-free environment where we can discuss money and kids aren't scared to talk to their parents about money. There's so many kids that I talked to over the last 2 years doing the research for this book that were nervous to talk to their
Hmm.
parents about money. And not that their parents are tyrants. Nobody's a jerk. They just didn't want to feel like they had made mistakes. They just didn't want their parents in their business, because if they're in their business, they're going to judge what I'm doing, or they're going to have opinions about where I spend my money. And I don't want to deal with that. Like, so just like, yeah. And so as parents, then what happens is it becomes a thing where we don't discuss it. And then it's like it kind of perpetuates that relationship with money where it's like taboo. And then if I'm having a hard time, I don't really know where to go for help. And so I think we can start that conversation early. So I think that's one of the things is read the book together as a team. And the other thing is the other challenge for families is that the opportunity for young people under 18 to earn money are getting harder and harder, right? Like youth unemployment is
Hmm.
sky high right now. Um, a lot of the jobs that used to happen just don't even exist anymore. We have self-serve checkouts, we have AI copywriters, we have all this kind of stuff with technology that takes those sort of typical young people summer jobs or young people part-time jobs while they're in high school off the table. And so there's still, helping your kid earn money, I think is like one of the most important things that we can do, because all of it is theory. Everything about money is theory until they have an income. Then they have the opportunity to practice tracking, budgeting, saving, but you can't actually practice any of those things unless you have an income. So either helping them set up a tutoring business or a babysitting, like help them figure out a cash flow stream or even an allowance if your budget allows it, even a small allowance. I worked with some families. It was like, I can do $10 a week and it's great. That's better than nothing. I would rather the kids save $2 a week and do it because they are starting the act and the habit of saving. And it's not even about $2. It's about I got 10 and I'm not spending all of it. It's a connection between money comes in and I don't spend it all. And
Hmm.
and that I think introducing and reinforcing year over year over year and the act of budgeting, because a lot of the kids I also talk to were like, I have no expenses. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then we can save your whole allowance. And they're like, well, no, I mean, like I go for lunch. And I'm like, oh, well, that's an expense. They're like, oh. And it's like, well, I go to the movies. Well, that's another expense. Oh. So this sort of like idea that like I don't have expenses because they assume that expenses are like a cell phone bill, like things like subscriptions, things like that. And so really introducing them to the idea of budgeting around spending money and how that's part of your expenses. And there are some expenses that are going to happen no matter what. And working through that and practicing that before they turn 18 as well, so that when they get that sort of like they've had practice with a digital card and a digital wallet, so that when they get to 18, they're like, ah, I know how to do this, even though I'm never touching it. I know on payday how to move money, and I know that this money is for spending, and I know that I've had practice sort of living within my means, even though I never actually see the money.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's a different world, and we need to help our kids through that. And I know from my own son's experience is there are less job opportunities.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, pretty much everybody worked.
Me too.
Everybody had a job, and
Yep.
it's just not the same anymore.
No, no, no. This was like I went through high school, like I had my first job in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. It was my high school job years, and I bounced around all kinds of places. There was like jobs, jobs, jobs. I could get a job wherever, like, you know what I mean? Like scooping ice cream, doing this thing over here, being a bus person at a restaurant. Like you could get a job, and it's just getting harder and harder for those things to exist. And I also found a real trend between this sort of like fear of being overworked. So a lot of kids are overprogrammed. I don't mean that as a slight. My kids are overprogrammed. It is the social norm to be very programmed these days, like with extracurriculars. And it just simply wasn't. I played on the high school volleyball team and that was about that. And so like I had time to go to a part-time job. And a lot of the kids are at hockey tournaments on the weekend or they're doing tutoring on the Tuesdays and then this on the Thursdays and like they have this. And so like if they're programmed in all these things, and when are they going to work? And then their school will fall. So the parents are like, no, no, don't work. Well, then we've just cut off their single opportunity to practice this fundamental life skill. So give them an allowance. You know what I mean? Like if you can do it, give them an allowance.
Yeah, and so I'll just put in a plug for I don't know if you know John Lanza, but he has a podcast called The Art of Allowance, where he
Oh,
talks specifically about how to manage an allowance.
you
So
should read Mina's
um,
chapters in the books and we should talk because I think an allowance is one of the most powerful gifts we can give our kids.
yeah, so he that's his whole thing. He wrote a
Cool.
book about it, just about allowances. So he's on the same page. So everybody watching and listening, John, I've done an episode with John, so I'll be sure to link to that episode and
Cool.
John's book, so you guys can check him out and follow up on this. So not only follow Shannon's advice, but learn how to really deal with that. So that's wonderful advice. So let's jump into what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. And these are three quick questions to help our listeners change the way they think about money. So they're rapid fire.
Cool.
The first one is, what money myth are you trying to break?
That money is taboo to talk about and rude to speak about. I think talking about money is the most important thing that we can absolutely do. I think it makes us compare ourselves less, wonder less, make us feel less like we're doing a bad job if we were just honest with money. The analogy I always use is, can you imagine if everyone on social media posted the Visa bill after their trip and not just the photo? Wouldn't that be so
Hmm.
wouldn't that be so relieving for all of us? Um, and so, yeah, talk about money in a real way with the people that you love. I'm not saying you have to post it on social media, but with the people you love, talk about it because that's the root cause of all of our relationship trauma with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, that's part of this whole get ready movement thing that I'm doing is changing the way we think, but also, is talking about it
Yep.
and having these conversations because if we don't talk about it, we don't deal with it. And as you're talking about the families and the whole thing is a lot of parents are scared to talk about money themselves because they don't feel comfortable with
Yes.
it. So, actually just to go back to that real quick is what would you say to parents who are like, I don't feel comfortable with money myself, so I don't want to embarrass myself in front of my kid.
Yeah, and I think that that is such a vulnerable, wonderful moment to share with your child. So imagine you had your teenager who is getting frustrated, and you could share that experience where you're like, so first of all, read the book and then you'll know everything. But also that like you're working through it together, and they're not going to be talking about how do you like take an option in an account. They're talking about budgeting,
Mm,
which is basic math skills and like navigating some stuff. So it's not like you're going to be tested on like a chartered financial analyst exam here. It's going to be the basics and the fundamentals. What I think parents are getting at when they say like I don't feel comfortable talking about that is that if they have their own relationship with money that is very charged, right? That's really what
hmm
and it's like not a comfortable thing. And they're scared of questions like how much do you make? And how much does our house cost? Because if we open the Pandora's box of talking about money with our kids, inevitably they're going to look right at you and say, well, what do you make? And I think it's a
hmm
comfort level of knowing that. So it depends on how old your kids are. My sort of like, do you get how honest are you? The younger they are, the more like abstract you can make it because you might not want your kid marching down the street saying, makes this like for real. And I get that. There is a thing of privacy, but as they get older, I think that they understand and you can level with them and say like,
hmm
and then look at our budget. Let's make a budget for together. You think that sounds like a lot of money? Look how fast it goes. And I think that's such a learning opportunity for a kid to appreciate money because I had this happen with one of the families I was working with. Well, my dad makes like $170,000 a year. He can afford to buy me stuff. And it's like, cool. That sounds accurate because that's a lot of money. But there's three kids. They are all in hockey and they're not in private school. They're in hockey and they have a mortgage because they didn't come from generational wealth. So they like have a big income, but they have a big ass mortgage and like they've got bills, bills,
hmm
bills. And once the son actually saw the reasonable things and the grocery bill for a family of five, saw how fast that big income got decimated and stopped complaining because the optics of what you think money is and what it actually is in the context of your real life are different things. So I kind of see it as an opportunity for older kids who can handle that kind of information and would be like private in your house. For younger kids, like sometimes when my 8-year-old's like, how much money do you make? I'm like, I make enough to be happy and pay our bills and have a safe house with things that we enjoy, but not so much to be burdened with it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I say we're in the middle and that's where you want to be. So I that's where I always say because I don't want to assign value to like, oh, rich is good because like you never like I don't actually believe that, first of all, and second of all, more money, more problems. So I feel like there's a middle ground where everyone can be happy.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. Is I think, be age appropriate when you have these conversations, but when you're open and honest, is your kids can start to really understand because they have no idea what taxes are and the
Yep,
bite that income taxes or
correct.
sales taxes or whatever kind of taxes,
Yep.
are applicable to wherever you're listening to this. There is always some kind of tax all around the world. So,
Death and taxes.
that alone is
Yeah.
a big bite. So, Shannon, let's get out the time machine for a minute. What advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now about money? Let's take you back to being a teenager. What do you wish
Mm.
you knew?
I truly wish I had saved more. I didn't actually save a lot of my money when I was a teen. I kind of just spent it. I have always worked, so I'm very proud of my teenage self for that. I was a real gung-ho part-time worker, so I worked, but I bought myself a car, very cheap, used Suzuki Sidekick, barely worked, transmission issues from day one. But it was mine. And I bought that and I blew a lot of money on that. And I wish that, I had a lot of student debt and I don't actually know if I would have been motivated to do anything differently, but I think that I wish that if I had floated back and I could tell myself, listen, that Suzuki Sidekick is going to cost you so much money and it's only going to last for 4 years. You're going to have a ton of student debt. Maybe you cannot do that and like maybe you can save that for some of your living costs down the road. But that's what I wish. But one of the things that I often found with teenagers is that saving for school, saving for future down payment is just simply not motivating. And I fundamentally understand that. So what I wish that I could tell, like back then, I was like, no, I'm just going to spend it all. And I wish that I had been motivated to save for, I wish I'd been more motivated to save in general instead of just spending all my money.
Yeah, well, I think that's so common. As I worked in, I spent all my money as well, saving it. Like,
Yeah.
what is saving?
What is
You
savings?
know?
And that's why I think for parents now, harness what they want, the expensive thing that they want, use that as motivation to practice savings. And who cares if they don't actually have any? What you're more trying to do is instill the habit of saving. That's more important than actually savings in the bank account.
I love it. So, if the final question is, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about money?
Oh, what a question. I think it, I kind of already said it off the top. I think it doesn't need to be as hard as we all make it. But what makes it hard, why we're not all just living within our means, you know what I mean? Like it's very simple,
Hmm.
is that it's so emotionally charged. So I think we all collectively need to stop thinking about money as our value of our worth, because as the cost of living goes up and things get more and more expensive, and we want to keep up and do all the things, we are making it harder and harder for ourselves to feel good financially in any
Hmm.
scenario, even when you have an income. So I feel like we need to stop thinking about it as like, I think we need to think, how about this? I think we need to think about money as a way to pay our bills, live our life, and have a bit of fun. And also, we are in a pressure cooker of how much it costs for life. And I think we all need to chill out on how much money we're spending collectively, not one or two people. I blame social media. It makes everyday life so much more expensive because we all think we've lost the plot on what's normal. And so like we all need to collectively chill on that as well so that we can just say, hey, I have what's enough? I have enough, and stop following people that make you feel like you don't.
Yeah, because we all have friends on social media, and I'm thinking of some friends right now who go on a lot of trips, but we don't know. My wife and I have talked about it. Is like, did they inherit money? I mean, are they not saving for their retirement? I mean,
Yeah,
we don't know.
we don't know.
There's.
And we used to, back in the day, if you wanted to see you might know your friends are on vacation, but you wouldn't be privy to the intimate details of their day-to-day vacation. And now you are. And if you wanted to see vacation photos, you'd have to go to their house and ask them for a copy. That's creepy and weird. So now, though, at any moment, in the most vulnerable moment where you're feeling a little downhearted about your life, now you see them in Paris with their kids, and then you think, my kids are missing out. Like I'm not engaging them in the world in that way. Like, are they going to be in a disadvantage? Maybe we should just blow our money and do it. Like, I feel bad. Like it's that, right? And no one's doing it on purpose. It is a collective thing that's happening. And I'd say that it's most insidious with our group of friends or the people connected versus influencers and people we don't know. We still have that, oh, you're a famous person and I don't compare myself to you. The actual damage is in seeing the day-to-day lives of people that we think are like us, but we don't really know how they're doing it. And therefore it makes us feel like we're doing something wrong. Like, do you know what I mean? Like are we doing something wrong?
Hmm.
And do we need to be doing what they're doing too? So I just wish social media never ever started. Straight up.
I've heard that from other guests too, and can sometimes feel that way as well. So, Shannon, to wrap up, where can people connect with you? And most importantly, where can they pick up a copy of Making Bank?
Yeah, Making Bank is in stores across Canada, like Indigo chapters, that kind of thing. At your local bookstore, you could ask for it. If it's not there, you could order it. And then for the New School of Finance, which is the fee-only financial planning, that's at newschooloffinance.com. And then you can find me on social media, which I am on begrudgingly, and all those places.
It's hard not to be. And I would imagine Making Bank is also available on Amazon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely on Amazon too.
Okay, fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, I will have links to Shannon's website, social media profiles, and to where you can pick up your own copy of Making Bank. Shannon, thanks again for joining us today and sharing insights.
Oh, this was a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in to this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If today's episode helped you change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also join the Get Ready movement at tonystewart.com to receive podcast updates, my newsletter, and free resources for financial literacy. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.